Jesus is there, and he is ministering to folks, healing the sick, raising the dead, and obviously a crowd is following him. And so he goes out into the desert area in Mark's Gospel, chapter 6, where it recounts the story. It talks about a barren place. It talks about a desert place. So they're out there. All these people have followed him out there. Crowds have gathered, and they're out there in the desert where there's no food, no provision. And so a need then arises of how he's going to meet this need to be able to satisfy what the crowd has. Maybe you're in that type of place today. Maybe you're in a situation to where you feel like you're in a desert. And I don't mean literally a desert, but a spiritual desert. That what you've got around you cannot satisfy you. And you're hungry, you're spiritually hungry for God to do more in your life. Well, that's really where these people were. They had followed Jesus out there because they had heard of what he had done, and I'm sure you've heard of what Christ can do, and that's one of the motivations that you are here today, or maybe you're watching us there online. But the thing about Jesus, when he looked at the crowd, he was able to recognize what their need was, and obviously their physical need was a need for food. So Jesus knew the need even before anybody else said anything. Nobody said anything about being hungry. We don't have any account for that. But Jesus recognized, Jesus knows what your need is right where you're at. He knows your situation right where you're at. And second of all, Jesus knew how to meet that need. And he knows how to meet your need. You don't know how to meet your need, or you'd have it met. He knows right where you're at. Because I'll tell you, the problem in the situation that you're in did not catch God by surprise. Now, our problems, our difficulties, our tragedies, they catch us by surprise many times. I wasn't expecting that. We didn't think that was going to happen. And that situation came, and it catches us by surprise, and we panic, and we don't know what to do. I'll say it again. It never catches God by surprise. When you lost your job and you're looking for a new job, God didn't get up in the morning and say, hey, give me that paper from Fresno. Let me see if I can find them a job to work in. No, it doesn't catch God by surprise. He's not trying to figure it out. He knows the answer even before the problem arises. God's got the answer before the devil ever came up with the problem. Come on, somebody help me right now. Remember, God doesn't react to the devil. We react to the devil. We react to the situation. God knows the beginning from the end. He knows what the end is going to be. And in that, you should have confidence knowing that even before you know what your problem is, God has already got the answer for it. When Abraham took Isaac up on the mountain to sacrifice him, and they knew there was going to need to be a sacrifice, while Abraham and Isaac's going up one side of the mountain, there's a ram going up on the other side of the mountain. Why? Because God provided a ram. God provided the sacrifice. God knew what the answer was even before they knew what the problem was. So no matter what you're facing today, I'll tell you right now, the answer is already coming down the road if you'll just open your eyes. I wish somebody would help me preach a little bit today. God knows our problem even before we know. He knows what the answer is even before we know what the answer is. My dad was that way. He knew what I needed before I even knew what I needed. He said, son, you need a whooping. I didn't think I needed a whooping, but the thing is, Jesus perceived the greater need. The need here for them was not just food. That was a small need he could satisfy. No, what Jesus showed here was the big problem was a lack of faith. And when he asked him the question, what are we going to do about this? He asked in verse 6, he said it was only to test them. For he already had in mind what he was going to do. He said, all right, guys, here's the problem. These guys are hungry, so what are you going to do about it? The problems in our life that come our way to either prove or improve our faith. Now, the devil's come to kill, steal, and destroy. We recognize that, and the devil wants to destroy us and all that. But when we are in covenant with God and walking with God, the problems that come our way will not destroy us if we will yield them to God. What they will do is they will prove our faith, or they will improve our faith. So my question is, with the problem that you're facing, the difficulty that you're facing, the challenge that you're facing, how is your faith going to be when it's over? Because if you put it in the hand of God, it will improve your faith. So how did the disciples then react? Here we got this problem, 5,000 men. And then we got their women and their children. And so it's a big number. It's a mess of folk, as we'd say back home. Let's just go with the hard facts, 5,000. 5,000, a lot of folks. So we got this problem of 5,000 plus that are hungry. What are we going to do? And so Jesus just tosses the question to the disciples. All right, boys, what you going to do about it? And so Philip came up with an answer. Philip said it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one of these to have a bite. So Philip's trying to figure out in his head. Philip, we got to feed all these people. My goodness, there's 5,000, all the women, children, there's thousands here. Let's figure out. He pulls the calculator out. The old folks know what I'm doing. Young people have no idea what I'm doing right now. And pulled the tape out there and looked at her and they said, there's no way that we've got enough money in the kitty to be able to pay for these folks' lunch. This just does not work. It's impossible for that to happen. Then you've got Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. Andrew, he comes up with an idea, and I really think he's being sarcastic when he says this. Andrew says, hey, we got this boy right here. This boy, he's got his lunch. This little boy, he's got his lunch right here. But then, suddenly, I guess it dawns on him, he said, wait a minute, there is no way that his lunch, and what's he got in there? He got some fish and some loaves, 5 loaves, 2 fishes. There is no way that is going to feed thousands of people. He looked at the size of the crowd, he looked at the size of the supply, what's in the sack, and he said, that's illogical. That didn't make sense. That is not going to happen. See, when they were trying to figure out the answer, like many of us try to figure out, we look at our resources and we look at what we've got. What they did, sadly, is they calculated without Christ. They were trying to figure the answer out without involving Christ in it. Let me ask you, when you face the problems of your life, do you include the God factor? Or do you just look at what you've got in your sack? Do you just try to figure it out by your resources and what you've got? Remember, a lack of food never stops God. It's a lack of faith that stops God. And that's where we've got to believe, because without faith it's impossible to please him. So if I were talking to Philip, I'd say, Philip, you need to understand, with man it may be impossible, but with God all things are possible. And to Andrew, I would tell him, you can't figure this out, but as the heavens are above the earth, my ways are above your ways, and my thoughts are above your thoughts, saith the Lord. You got to include the God factor in your problem. And that's why if you keep your head down all the time, oh, poor me, we're not going to make it, we're not going to get out of this. That's where your problem is coming from, is from below. You need to get your head up and look to God, because he is the author and the finisher of your faith. So the disciples didn't have the answer. So Jesus then says, well, I know what I'll do. I'll work this thing out. And so he shows them how a miracle could happen. Could it just be that the problem that you're facing in your life could just be the opportunity that God has set up for a miracle to happen in your life? Oh, come on, help me now. Let me broaden your vision here a little bit. You're just looking at you. Well, he wants to meet your need, but there's 5,000 folks out there with their women and children that need to be fed. There's an opportunity for a miracle to take place that 2,000 years ago in downtown Fresno, people are still going to be talking about it, because there's a chance for a miracle to happen at that point. Can I tell you that maybe just perhaps the problem that you're facing right now is not meant to destroy you, but is meant to bring glory to God, that not only will your need be met, but that others around you, their need can be met, and others will hear about the goodness and the power of God. God's ready to work a miracle. I'll say it again, this is a house of miracles. So Jesus then told them to sit down. In Mark chapter 6, that account, he gave them more specific. He said, put them in groups of 50. Organize them. Have them sit down on the grass, put them in groups of 50. See, the prerequisite to miracles in your life is putting things in order in your life. When your life is in chaos because you've not put things in order, I know chaos comes to our life, but it's what we're going to do with the chaos. We need to put it in order, and the way we put things in order is put God first in our life. And many people are missing the miracle in their life because they haven't put order in their life. And God's wanting to work that miracle. God is wanting to supply your need if you'll just sit down and put your life in order. Come on, turn to somebody and say, just sit down. You're running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Oh, what am I going to do? Oh, poor me. And God says, well, you just sit down and put your life in order, and I'll show you how I work a miracle in your life. Oh, come on, that's for somebody right there. Somebody got somebody running around like a chicken. What are we going to do? Sky's falling. Put your life in order. So what do we have to work with here? The boy's got his lunch. He's got his lunch there, and Andrew says, well, we got this. we got 2 fish and 5 loaves and that's it. So here you go, Jesus. Work with this. And so Jesus took the sack from the little boy. I think he probably had, I don't know if he had a sack lunch. See, the principle here is simply simple. What you transfer to Christ can be transformed by Christ. Until you transfer it to Christ, you're never giving him the opportunity to transform it. Now, the fishes and the loaves are not going to be enough to meet the need by any means. And I know what some of you are thinking, well, what I got really isn't a lot. I mean, I don't have enough. My goodness, what I've got here this is not enough to meet the need that I have. Think about it. 5 pieces of bread, 2 fishes, 5,000 men, women, children. Some say that it would be close to 15,000 possibly. How in the world, that's why Andrew said it's illogical, it's impossible. That cannot meet the need. That was the boy's lunch. Just that growing teenage boy was going to consume this sack. And to think that this is going to meet the need of thousands, that's crazy. And it's the same way we look at the resources that we have. We look at the supply that we have and say, this is not enough. You know why you think that? You're not including the God factor. You're trying to hang on to it, and you're counting your pennies, you're counting your resources, you're counting what you've got. And until you transfer it to God, you're not going to see the miracle happen. You say, well, it's not enough. Let me tell you right now, God will always be satisfied with what you have if you make it available to him. I'm going to say that again. God will always be satisfied with what you have. I just got this. I just got 2 little widow's mites. And God says, that's enough. That'll work. My faith is so small. It's like this mustard seed faith. That's enough. I can move a mountain with that. It's not what you've got, it's what you do with what you've got. And many of you are hanging on to what you've got, and you're not releasing the miracle that God has placed within your life. I've got to hurry. So now remember what the big problem was. The big problem was not a lack of food. The problem here that Jesus is dealing with is a bigger lesson, and that's the lack of faith that these disciples, his homeboys that he was running with here. They just couldn't figure this out. Now, God's got a sense of humor. That's why at the end of the story, when they take up all the baskets, they had a bunch left over. And how many baskets did they take up afterwards? 12 basketfuls. How many disciples are there? 12 of them. I think he took each one of those. I don't know if he gave the baskets to the disciples, said, here, I just want you to remember what I can do. Or maybe he gave all 12 of them to the boy and said, here, take this home to your mama. She ain't going to believe this. But God is wanting to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we're able to ask or even think, according to the power that works within us. So what you've got to remember is never doubt what God can do. Never doubt what God can do. This is impossible. No, don't doubt what God can do, because God is in the miracle working business. I mean, come on, friends. If I didn't believe this, I would check out right now. if I didn't believe that God was in control, if I didn't believe that God was supernatural, if I didn't believe that God wanted to intervene in my life in a supernatural way by first of all cleansing me of my sins and putting me on the pathway to heaven, if I didn't believe that he didn't want to intervene in my life in a supernatural way on a daily basis, why in the world would I follow him? But I believe that he is the King of Kings. I believe he is the resurrected of the dead. I believe he is the miracle worker. I believe he is supernatural. And in that, I'm not going to forget the God factor when it comes to dealing with the problems of my life. I'm going to turn them over to him because I'm not going to doubt what God can do. And second of all, you need to realize, never deny God access to what you have. Because not only is God in the miracle business, but he's in the multiplication business. He can take what you got and he can multiply it. So see, Jesus saw what the crowd was. They're hungry out there. We need to do that. But he saw what the real need. These disciples need to learn something about faith. So I'm going to teach them a lesson. So I'll perform this miracle. So Jesus performs the miracle. And this is what I call the lesson of the loaves. This is really what he's trying to teach them there. I mean, if he really just didn't need them, didn't want to teach them something, then he would just create Chick-fil-A to be out there in the middle of the desert and to feed them all chicken out there. But he said, no, I want to show you guys something. So he said, all right, give me the little boy's fishes and the loaves. And it says in verse number 41, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks. This is Mark's account of it in Mark chapter 6. He gave thanks. See, that's where you always got to start, is with giving thanks. It always starts with thanks. Our problem is, instead of giving thanks, instead of our gratitude, we start with gripes. Oh my goodness, this is all I got. This is not going to feed anybody. I can't believe this is the problem I got. And I'm never going to be able to make it. I'm never going to get out of this situation. I'm never going to get in. I'm not going to do all this right here. And we just gripe and gripe. God, why did you let this happen? Why did this happen? And we gripe to God. How many of you have griped to God? Lion spirit, come out of the rest of you. We've all found ourselves in that situation. When we find ourselves in a problem and we look at it, oh God, I can't believe it. And sometimes we even get angry about it. Don't start with your gripe, start with your gratitude. Thank God you got something in your bag. Thank God God has done something. Thank God that you're breathing. Thank God that you're upright. Thank God that the health is in your body. You got something. The miracle is in the house. You may not have a lot. You may not have a whole bunch, but you got what it takes when you put it in the hand of God. So what did he do? He took the bread. He'd given thanks. He started there. And then what did he say he did with the bread? He broke the bread. So he's got all the disciples up there. He says, come on, boys. We got them split up here, groups of 50. Now, again, I want you to get the magnitude of this 5,000 men. Double that, because we know at least kids, at least 10, at minimum 10,000. 10,000. What does Bulldog Stadium seat? Huh? 40,000. Save Mart Center, 13,000. Thank you. Bring it down to where I'm at. So, okay, let's go Save Mart Center. And you got that place packed. And Jesus has got a little sack here with some bread and some fishes. He says, all right, guys, come up here. I'm going to pray over this, and we're going to feed these folks. And you know the disciples, because that's what we are. We are stinking disciples. You know that Peter was punching Bartholomew. Hey, Bart, this is how are we going to get out of this? Because he's going to take that bread, and that is not enough to feed all these folks. And now we have organized them. What are we sitting down here? We're about to have lunch. Oh, good, great. Get my napkin out. I'm ready to go. And we got all these hungry people sitting here. We've told them we're going to feed them. And do you see what we've got? And management is just going to sit up there in office. We're the guys that got to go meet with the customer. We're the guys that got to go to the groups of 50. And so let's start breaking this thing up. And so Jesus blessed it, and he broke it. He pulled that off. He said, all right, Bart, come over here. Here's yours. Now go feed that group of 1,000 over there, that group of 500, or get that group of 50, just 50. How in the world am I going to feed 50 people with this? Now the bread was greater than the fish. It was just 2 fishes. I was going to bring fishes up here, but We've already got enough of Nate's cologne up here, so we didn't need anything else. So. Shots fired. Anyway, so we got the bread. So we go do this. Now, where do you think the miracle happened? The miracle happened, I believe, not in the blessing, but in the breaking. Because as then they began to distribute. I'm sure that Bart got to his groups. All right, I got my bread here. All right, guys, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to give you a piece. And I got to make this last through all 50 of you here. Let's start with just 50. I got to make this last with all 50. So I'm going to give you just a little piece. Because this is going to last for 50 people. Matter of fact, I'm sure they turned to Jesus because they saw the problem that was coming. Lord, how much do we need to give them? How are we going to break this up? Kind of help me here a little bit, Jesus. I need some help in this. I'm not figuring this out here because even if I break it, that's not going to. Because did you see the guy on the third aisle? Did you see how much he can eat? Because obviously this guy is going to consume everything. How much do we need to give them? And Jesus said, here's what you need to do. Give them as much as they want. Again, did you see the guy on the third aisle? And you want me to give them as much as you want? Yeah, give them as much as they want. As hungry as they are. Let me tell you what keeps the flow of God from coming into your life? It's your appetite. How hungry are you for God? Because ever how hungry you are for God, God says you can have all you want. Now, if you filled yourself up on the stuff of this life, if you filled you up on the sweets of this life, as we tell our kids, you're going to ruin your supper. And sadly, we have done that in many of the things of this world. God says, no, as hungry as you are, come. Taste and see that the Lord is good. So give them all they want. All right, so we'll do that. So, sir, how much do you want? Well, I'm kind of hungry. Give me 5 pieces here. So, all right, let me break off 5 pieces. I got you 5 pieces right there. And the guy next to him says, hey, I'd like to have 5 pieces. That guy got 5. I'm as hungry as him. Give me 5 pieces. Well, okay, here's your 5 pieces. And what about, I'm not done. Give me 4 pieces. And they say, I'm a little hungry. Give me 6 pieces. And I believe where the miracle happened, that as these disciples began to tear off pieces of bread, suddenly there was more bread that was there. And what looked like a limited supply suddenly became an endless supply as long as people were hungry for it. Oh, I said something right there. See, so when you hear me talking about miracles and believing for miracles and confessing for miracles, God will give us what we are hungry for. God will give us the desire of our heart to see the lives of people. That's why I want to come hungry. That's why I don't want to settle for little crumbs. I don't want just a little, that was a nice little sermon, Pastor. I don't want to give you nice little sermons. I want to rock your world. I want to challenge you by the power of the Holy Spirit. I want the anointing of God to be so thick in this place that when people walk in here, they're looking for Jesus because this place is so filled with His presence. I'm not satisfied with a little bit. And if you'll have a hungry to say, I want as much as I can get, it's in the breaking is where the miracle begins to take place. Now, let me conclude. I've gone long, so let me see if I can land this thing. So Jesus sees what their need is. He challenges the disciples. He says, you need faith. Here's what we're going to do. Give me what you got. And if you'll put it in my hands, I'll show you what I can do. But you're going to have a part in this because you're going to be the ones that's going to be distributing it. You've got a part in the miracle that God is wanting to do in your life and through your life. So the miracle takes place. They take up the 12 baskets. They go on their way. The next day, it says the next day, the following day. Sometimes it's not till the following day that you figure out what God did yesterday. Sometimes it's not till next week. Sometimes it's not till next year that you look back and you say, man, that looked like a problem. And now I understand what God was doing in that situation. How many can look back on a situation in your life and say, I didn't understand it then, but now I get it. Now I see what God was doing. And Jesus says, guys, sit down here. Let me explain this to you. And you can read it there in that chapter where Jesus said, you guys are looking for miracles. You're so concerned about the bread, how we did all that. What you need to understand, I am the bread of life. I am the source of life. I am the sufficiency of life. I am the supply of life. And when you get me, you get everything. When you turn your sack over to me, I can pull things out of your life that you never had any idea was in your life. I can pull miracles out that you never thought were there. And the only thing that's going to limit that is what your hunger is and what your desire is. So come on back, musicians, I'm through. So let me ask you a question. Are you in a desert? Are you in that dry place where you've come looking for answers, come asking God for answers in your life to say, God, I've got to have some answers. And these people followed Jesus to the desert. And maybe you're here today and you recognize your relationship with God is not what it should be. You need that. You're in the right place if you'll turn your life over to God. Or maybe you're here today and you're facing a problem, a challenge, something that seems impossible. You don't have the finances to do it. You don't have the resources to do it. The doctor's giving you a bad report. The lawyers tell you it's not going to happen. The marriage counselor, your family. I mean, everything just looks bad. In all of your mind, there is no way what I got in this sack is going to be able to meet the need. You need to turn it over to Jesus. You need to surrender it to Him today. Your problem, your difficulty, your circumstances. And if you'll give Him what you've got, well, I'll give Him my problems. No. You need to give Him what you've got that you thought was going to be the answer to your problems. You need to transfer it to Him so He can transform it in your life. And if that's you here today, you're not here by mistake either. Can you imagine how these people were talking when they went back home? Man, that was the best fish sandwich I have ever had. I had 3 of them. How did that happen? I met a man that worked a miracle in my life. And I believe there's people that are going to leave here today with that type of a testimony. And friends, that's the lesson of the loaves. 13.